Welcome to Concept Channel.
Gap model of service quality. The gap model of service quality, which is also called the customer service gap model or the 5 gap model, is a framework which can help us to understand customer satisfaction. The model shows the 5 major satisfaction gaps that organizations must address when seeking to meet customer expectations. This model was first proposed by A. Parasuraman, Valery Zithmel, and Leonard L. Berry in 1985. In the gap model of service quality, customer satisfaction is largely a function of perception. These gaps are the causes of dissatisfaction in customers. Therefore, it is a duty of the marketers to reduce the gaps as far as possible. This is the gap model of service quality. Here we can see 5 gaps. Gap number 1. Gap number 1 is a gap between customer expectation and understanding of customer needs. Gap 2 is a gap between understanding of customer needs and service delivery process. Gap 3 is a gap between service delivery and service delivery policies. Gap 4 is a gap between service delivery and external communication. And gap 5 is a gap between customer expectation and customer perception. Now we will see in detail what are these various gaps. Gap 1 is called knowledge gap. This gap, as we just saw, is a gap between customers' expectation of service and understanding of customer needs. So, what do you feel are the reasons for these gaps? That the company is not able to understand the needs of the customer. Naturally, when the company is lacking a relationship focus, then it will not be able to understand the needs of the customer. So the first reason for gap 1 is lack of relationship focus. Then it's quite possible that the company is not able to do proper market research. So the second point is insufficient market research, because of which gap 1 arises. The third reason may be failure to listen to customer complaints. So these may be the reasons for gap 1, which is a knowledge gap in gap model. Now looking at gap 2, which is called the policy gap. As we just saw, that this is the difference between management's understanding of customer needs and the translation of that understanding into service delivery policies and standards. Reasons for gap 2: lack of customer service standards or poorly defined service levels or failure to regularly update service level standards. The third gap in gap model is called the delivery gap. Now, what are the reasons for this gap? Number 1, deficiencies in human resource policies. Number 2, failure to match supply to demand. Number 3, employee lack of knowledge of the product. And number 4, lack of cohesive teamwork to deliver the product or service. Gap 4, it is called the communication gap. It is a gap between service delivery and external communication. Out of the various reasons for this particular gap, one very important reason is overpromising. Meaning, overpromising from the company to the consumers. The companies promise the customers much more than they can deliver, and thus there is a communication gap. The second point is viewing external communication as separate to what's going on internally. Meaning, what is going on internally in the company and what they are externally communicating is different. Now we come to gap 5, which is called the customer gap. Customer gap is the gap between customer expectation and customer perception. This gap occurs because customers do not always understand what the service has done for them, or they misinterpret the service quality.